North Korea is expanding its alliance with Russia to take on the U.S. and its allies.
In a war where every decision shapes the fate of nations, alliances are tested, and betrayals will occur.
As the U.S. confirms, 10,000 North Korean troops are in Russia and could be used to bolster Russian forces near Ukraine.
Today, we unravel a story that's as tragic as it is mysterious. A tale of unexpected twists and dark secrets on the battlefields of Ukraine. For the first time, senior US officials have confirmed a shocking development. North Korea, long isolated and enigmatic, is sending troops to Russia. At least 10,000 North Korean soldiers are currently deployed in the Kherson Oblast of Ukraine. But instead of bolstering Russia's war effort, reports indicate that these troops are a hot mess. In one surreal turn of events, North Korean soldiers have even reportedly turned on their Russian comrades, killing them in skirmishes. Was this some kind of strategy, or an act of blatant incompetence? Meanwhile, Russia is suffering from staggering losses, the highest casualty rates since the invasion started. Is President Vladimir Putin running out of soldiers, and has his desperation blinded him to the dangers of this alliance? On December 14th, the unimaginable happened in war-torn Kherson Oblast. North Korean soldiers accidentally or intentionally opened fire on Russian transport vehicles carrying the elite Chechen Akhmat unit. The result was the death of 8 Russian soldiers in this unfortunate case of friendly fire. The incident was a bitter blow for Russia, though not an isolated one. It is reported that tensions are high, and disquieting stories of internal violence continue to surface from within the Russian ranks. Just 2 days before this incident of friendly fire, on December 22nd, another atrocity was captured. Ukrainian drone footage captured the moments when Russian forces executed 5 Ukrainian prisoners of war. The footage shows 5 soldiers who, with their hands up in surrender, were shot mercilessly. The brutality has sparked outrage as Ukraine calls for justice through an international tribunal. But how did North Korea, a country cloaked by a secretive regime, become embroiled in this war? And why are its soldiers turning against their so-called allies? It came tagged with a price: $5 billion in investments from Russia. Now the alliance is collapsing. Poor training, language barriers, and heavy casualties turned these troops into more of a liability than an asset. In November, Ukrainian forces struck a Russian command center with Storm Shadow missiles and killed 500 North Korean soldiers and a high-ranking general. The strike laid bare the weakness of a reliance by Russia on foreign troops. It is very hard to cope with for North Korean soldiers who are not modernly trained. There are reports of one soldier accidentally shooting his comrade while aiming at a Ukrainian drone. Ukraine's tactical brilliance only adds to their plight. With state-of-the-art drones, anti-drone guns, and innovative battlefield strategies, the Ukrainian forces have turned the tide. From jamming drone signals to crafting improvised anti-drone devices, they have converted every challenge into an opportunity. But what of the North Korean soldiers themselves? The grim reality was told by one captured Russian soldier. Treated better than the Russian troops, eggs and coffee instead of barley porridge, their behavior is robotic and dislocated. These soldiers shoot at everything that moves, often causing friendly fire incidents. They move in tight groups, only to be wiped out by Ukrainian strikes. Induction gone deep in their brains. After seeing all comrades fall, they march ahead to die for their leader. But that game plan for Russia has been unraveling. Recent attempts at a breakthrough in the KSK region ended catastrophically. Precise strikes together with well-fortified positions have pushed Russian morale to an all-time low. Meanwhile, Ukraine's improvisations like anti-drone backpacks and weapons constantly outsmart the Russians and North Koreans, while linguistic obstacles and rushed deployments render this axis easy pickings. Both sides know what is at stake. Whoever controls large swathes of territory, from Pakros down to Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, will win the war. For Ukraine, every inch of land is sown with mines, dragon's teeth, and artillery. If Pakros falls, Russia will see its logistical network in tatters, and its dreams of pushing deeper into southeastern Ukraine reduced to tatters. But in the midst of this mayhem, one thing is clear. Russia's decision to commit unprepared North Korean troops has transformed a fragile alliance into a very expensive blunder. All of that chaos within the ranks is exacerbated by the psychological impact on both sides' soldiers. The will of the Ukrainian fighters, while quite determined, is nevertheless worn out by the constant loss of comrades and the destruction of their motherland. Their morale, however, remains well above that of their opponents. For the Russian and North Korean troops, desperation is in the air. North Korean soldiers, brainwashed to be loyal to their regime, barely understand the intricacies of this foreign conflict. Their robotic obedience often leads them to their deaths, while Russian troops are growing increasingly frustrated with their new allies. Tales of squabbles over resources, misunderstandings, and even physical altercations emerge frequently from the battlefield. The logistics behind Russia's decision to involve North Korea also reveal some worrying signs of desperation. As manpower decreases and international sanctions begin to bite even harder, the increasing reliance by Russia on external forces puts into perspective how the infrastructure that supports its military operations is crumbling. Military analysts say the decision to include North Korean troops, none of whom are battle-trained, was more an act of necessity than strategy, one that has badly backfired. As the losses mount and alliances fracture, the Kremlin now risks not just a military defeat, but also an international humiliation. This international support is a lifeline for Ukraine. Advanced weaponry from other nations is very important in their efforts to retake their land, supplemented by humanitarian aid and moral support. The Ukrainian people remain resilient. Their spirits have not been lowered by the overwhelming challenge. Another vital part of civilian resistance comes through ordinary citizens contributing to the war effort in whatever way they can, be it through logistical support or creating improvised defenses. It is against this background that the role of technology has become more vital than ever. The Ukrainian forces have turned the battlefield into a proving ground for some really cutting-edge warfare. From leveraging AI in strategic planning to deploying unmanned aerial systems for reconnaissance and strikes, Ukraine has shown an adaptability that keeps her adversaries behind her back. At the same time, Russia with its outdated system and North Korea with their rudimentary tactics struggle to catch up, hence such devastating losses. Certainly, one cannot neglect the psychological aspect of war either. To North Korean soldiers, most of whom have never experienced combat outside their native soil, the scale and brutality of Ukraine's conflict is unimaginable. The cultural and linguistic barriers add to their isolation, making them vulnerable and incapable of any kind of joint operation. On the other hand, Ukrainian soldiers fighting for their motherland have an unparalleled sense of purpose. It is this sharp contrast in motivation and preparedness that tips the balance in Ukraine's favor, even in the most hopeless situations. And the more this war stretches into the deepest of winter and worse conditions, both sides are digging deeper. Supplies become scanty, morale falls, and the cost of human lives increases day by day. However, there is still hope among this suffering and heroic tales as well. Opening Ukrainian civilians welcome houses for the displaced families, the riskier lives of soldiers for the sake of others, including internationals who came forward to help. What an amazing sign of resilience among human beings. It is, in the end, not a war over territory or power, but one of ideas, of freedom against oppression, survival against subjugation. The outcome is far from certain, but of this much, one can be certain. The sacrifices that will be made on these battlefields will determine the destiny not only of Ukraine, but also of the world. It's not a war over territory, but over the strength, innovation, and will to live. As Ukraine struggles for survival, and the international alliances that once held Russia dissolve, the world spectates at this sad and mysterious tale, wondering how it will finally come to an end. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from the front lines.